as we're walking into a house, generally the first room you're going to run into is typically the living room. And you want to create a place where when guests come into your home, you feel like it's very spacious, people can walk through the area, and you're not stepping on a whole bunch of things. So typical things that you'd find in a living room would be televisions, electronics, books, maybe DVDs, could be pet toys, kids' toys, depending on where you're storing them. So I'm here today to give you a few tips and tricks for keeping your living room a little bit more organized, so that way you can enjoy your space. One of the best things that you can do in your living room to kind of contain that clutter is to use baskets or some sort of container. How many times when you have kids do you have toys just flowing through your living room? And sometimes the living room isn't where the toys are meant to be stored. Usually it's a child's room or maybe even playroom, but a lot of times when you're spending the most of your time in the living room, the child tends to bring their things in there. So containerize them. Do a basket for each child's items, and then at the end of each evening, their toys can be thrown into that basket. They're also great for containerizing dog toys, remote controls, game devices, things like that, just so they're not floating around on countertops and you can really sort of keep them condensed. Who really has time to get to the gym nowadays? Or we all mean to, but we don't really make it there. So here's a great way to condense a small space with your exercise equipment. We don't want to use it for hanging out and drying our laundry. It really needs to be in an area where you're going to use it. Here, it's great because it's in the living room, I'm able to see the television, and I can utilize the bike while, say, watching my favorite show. Down here, we have a dog bed. It's tucked away in the corner. It's not out for everyone to see. I can pull it out if I'm spending some time with the pet in the household, but right now it's just kind of tucked away in the corner and it's safe where no one can trip on it. So really try to utilize the corners in a room, maximize the space where you can fit everything in together and still enjoy your space at the same time. One of the great tips that I have for organizing your living room space when we're talking about bookcases is really utilizing the vertical space. So when we first had this bookcase, there were only 2 shelves here. And so there was a lot of wasted space because we decided that DVDs were going to be stored on these shelves. So we moved down the shelves, added another one, and we were able to fit a whole nother row of DVDs, which enabled us to maximize this space to its fullest. Another thing that's really great about some of these units is that there are doors on the front, and that way you're able to hide some things that you may not want guests to see when they're entering your home, but it also functions as a great storage space for things like maybe candles or CD binders, things that you want tucked away. Put some containers up here. It's great to have containers that have handles so it's easier to pull them down and have access to them. And then as you can see, I have these labeled, so I'm able to know what goes into each container. No matter who's getting things down or who's putting things away, there's no question as to where something needs to go. So there's no more excuses from the kids saying, "Mom, I don't know where this is supposed to go," when it's clearly labeled. And then you can just pull them down and put things back up there. Now, I wouldn't put anything up there that is going to be everyday use. So items that should go up there should be things that are used on an infrequent basis, but you still need to keep in the house. One of the biggest concerns in a living room is all of the wires that we have. With TVs, Xboxes, PlayStations, VCRs, DVDs, Blu-ray players, there's so many wires in our living room that sometimes it's hard to keep up with all of them. So one of my tips for the living room when it comes to your wires is to keep them condensed. You can wrap them with different objects. There's Velcro straps, there's zip ties, anything to just sort of keep the wires wrapped and pulled tight together is a really good thing to keep things from floating around. Something that I have utilized here is actually using a container to store the wires in and actually kind of hide them from the view of the television. Back behind here, it's actually cut out and the wires are being stored in here. Back behind these books is the Wi-Fi, the router, things like that that really need to be out more in the open so you can still get a good Wi-Fi signal. But the wires of the television and the Xbox player can really be tucked away somewhere so you can't see them.